My name is Tom Broussard. The background, of course, some of you might know who I am. I had my first stroke in 2011. I was a dean at a college outside of Boston, fell down on that street, got dragged away, and ended up with aphasia. I could not read, write, or speak well. I say this very briefly because now you see how well I have done over the last almost 9 years. And that is how the brain really does work. I could not do that work. I had my job, could not do it because I could not express it. I could not do what one needs to do. Now, as I go forward, I become quite educated about aphasia and awareness in particular. So this presentation is all about aphasia awareness, and I call it Go Viral 2024. I say that because, and this is more of the data component of this, I say that because the National Aphasia Association did a survey in 2016, that was their first one, and upon doing the survey, discovered that about 8.8% are aphasia aware, meaning people know what that is. 4 years later, just done a couple of months ago, they did the survey again, and for whatever reason, it went down. 7% are now aphasia aware. But over the last couple of years, I began to figure out what the disconnect is, because when we get to the data, then we move to the problem. The data shows, and I showed it last year, I think that was last year, time does fly, at the Baltimore Aphasia Access Summit. And I did a study and then made a presentation about the fact that hospitals and healthcare communities, for whatever reason, although there are some reasons, do not use the lexicon of aphasia. And I found that out because I've been working with a hospital here in St. Augustine for several years. I'm there as a volunteer, have been for almost 8 years. And, went looking on their website and could not find the word aphasia. Here it is in the middle of the night. That hospital right here in town does not use the word aphasia. If you go into their search box and put in aphasia, it'll come out, it'll actually say, "We're sorry, we don't understand what that is." How does that happen? Well, I started looking at more and more hospitals and found the exact issue. For whatever reason, over the years, stroke and communication problems was what they were articulating, and they typically don't use the word aphasia. And as a result, you don't get to see the entire recipe of all these other, the ingredients and recipes of all these other issues that are underneath aphasia. So often you'll just see communication problems and they go on describing those communication problems, but without using the word aphasia. So I looked at hospitals here in Florida, did that study. Then I started looking around the country and actually found some of the largest hospitals around the country, various states, where the largest hospital still does not use the word aphasia at all. Even if they are accredited stroke centers, they still don't use those words. And that was an interesting thing. So that's the beginning of the data. That's why I started the plan for the next 4 years, because by 2024, we have to do more than 7 or 8% that are aware about aphasia. And to do that, you begin to realize that for all the time I've been working, most of the people I talk to, meaning everybody listening, are already in the bubble, right? Everybody here in this presentation knows a whole lot more about aphasia. We have to get outside the bubble. We have to get to the hundreds of millions of people who do not know anything about aphasia. Of course, I didn't know anything about stroke and aphasia either until I had my stroke. So what turns out is that although we've been focused very much on us, meaning the people with aphasia and the speech world, we have to turn around and look to the outside and begin to understand that if we want to make more people aware, we need to talk to those people in various groups. So because that is the problem. It is the gap between the world of stroke and aphasia, the speech world, through the hospitals where you have stroke. That's where people get admitted as people with stroke go into hospitals typically, and that's where it stops. That is the gap. That is what's missing, and that has to be changed. I've also looked at the American Hospital Association. You should do that too. And actually, everybody that's listening should actually check not only with their own hospital, because often they have rehab components, and at that point, because you work there or know them well, they know about aphasia. But go just a little bit outside. Go to the next hospital, next hospital nearby, and find out what they do or don't do. So American Hospital Association, at their website, if you put in the search box at stroke, and you get, a couple days ago, 245 hits. If you put in aphasia, you get 1. That's a couple days ago. And the 1 doesn't really tell you a whole lot about aphasia. It just makes some mention of this thing called aphasia. That's at the American Hospital Association. The American Heart Association, the American Stroke Association are using more about aphasia, but not as much as it needs to. And I am a national volunteer at the AHA. I've been there for 2 years and have become more involved with the AHA and American Stroke Association, reviewing all of their publications, pamphlets, brochures, and online. I just did all the materials and sent comments on to them just a couple days ago, and now I'm about to take another month to go through their online materials, looking for, finding, and then changing wherever they can, and bringing aphasia more to the fore, not showing up in a long set of table of contents and coming up with aphasia at the end without even anything at the beginning that says with stroke, and 30 to 40% of people with stroke acquire aphasia. That doesn't even show up. And if you do, it is way down at the bottom. Nothing on the cover that says, yes, we're talking about communication issues, but it doesn't talk about aphasia, which is really you need the word, and you can target that word. You can attack that word. You can become more aware of that word. But without that word, there's no awareness, because communication problems, well, we all have that. I have it, we have it, healthy people have it. That isn't enough. This is why we have to do that. And that is the problem. The plan going forward, now again, I have this little company, it's just me, it's called Stroke Educator. But once I was able to start to write well enough for others to understand, I started writing about stroke and aphasia, and just released my 4th book. It is called The ABCs of Aphasia, and it's the first step towards this Go Viral 2024 that I feel we need to do going forward, because to fill in that gap. When I was at my hospital, and of course I didn't know anything about it, I didn't even know why I was there, I was assessed at that hospital. I knew I'd met an SLP, but again, I was still quite unaware. But when I left the hospital 6 days later, I didn't get anything. They just said it will take me a month for my brain to settle down. And that's true. It took me about a month. But I didn't get any information other than a 2-page printout from a soon-to-be my next rehab hospital where I was going to go in a month. And it was 2 pages, and it listed all kinds of things, not just aphasia. But that's the first time I saw it. And to the degree I, quote, saw it, it meant that my family said, oh, this thing called aphasia, this is you. This is what you have to work on. But a month later, other than, again, my family looking online to find out more about aphasia, I still had nothing to work with. And that is what we need to do for the person with stroke and stroke and aphasia and the family, is at the beginning, because typically if you read the literature, the scientific literature, it says the earlier the better. You have to learn and begin to practice and understand what this disorder is all about, you have to start sooner. But for a month, at least in my case, I didn't do anything. So to fill that gap, and that's the beginning of it, is the ABCs of Aphasia. This is it. It came out, which I did on purpose. Actually, I did it on purpose because I was going to be speaking at the Aphasia Day 2020 in Chicago. Of course, it was canceled, but I was incredibly excited. And last year in December, I figured I should write this, be ready for it, and come up and show them the new surprise, which they didn't even know until 6 months later that I was bringing this with me. But this is part of the start of aphasia awareness, with a plan that, again, only I know about it, because I have to continue to provide the information going forward. So the book is number one. This conversation is a good one for number two. And the next step is a new website. I've started a nonprofit, and it is called Aphasia Awareness for All. Makes it pretty easy. The paperwork is on its way, and once I start with the website, which has also been started, then I'll be able to start putting up the activities with which I think we all need to do. And to the degree that we all have been doing an awful lot of things. Look at Aphasia Month. I'm looking at my calendar, and I have over 30 events for the month of June, and I still have several more to come. I'm going to be 30 some, maybe even 40. So that's what we've been doing, and it's all about awareness. But an awful lot of the people to whom we are talking are already in the group. Not a whole lot going out. I was to have a table at the local grocery store this week, actually this week coming up, and of course with the virus I couldn't do that, but that would have been one of those places where you can get a lot of people to at least understand a little bit about aphasia. Last year, you might remember, I was at Staples as a volunteer, and I greeted everybody on the whole weekend of the beginning of the school semester. I greeted everybody. I had with them my National Aphasia Association Aphasia ID card, and I had printed out and had them ready, and I greeted 500 and some people. Back then you could shake hands. You can't do that today. But I handed everybody this, and I had a table, and sure enough, people had to go by me all the time, and sure enough, people started to show up talking about it. And for the most part, people said somebody in their family, brothers, fathers, mothers, grandpeople, they did understand about stroke. Rarely did they know anything about aphasia, often telling me that yes, they had their grandfather who couldn't talk for the last several years. They didn't know what this thing was. And that continues to be the issue. Again, I mentioned even at the local hospital where I have had 80 people in a room, older people, talking about stroke and aphasia. And I always ask, depending on my audience, how many people here know something about stroke? And everybody raises their hand. How many here knows anything about aphasia? Not a thing. After I spoke for a few more minutes, one more person jumped up. She said, oh, my daughter, the daughter is some 50 some years old, she must have this thing called aphasia because she can't go back to work. She can't talk well. I said, was she assessed? No, I don't know how this works. She just isn't home now watching TV. Yeah. Again, this is where the break happens basically everywhere. Since the underlying condition that allows us to inform and educate people about aphasia, you need the lexicon. Otherwise, when you go to talk to somebody out on the street, which I do a lot, you can't just start talking about aphasia and have everybody understand what this really means. You have to lay out a much more deep understanding of how the brain works, how stroke works, how aphasia works, and how these various components of aphasia also work, because any number of things of these deficits are attributed to one kind of aphasia or another. So it does require a lot of work across a universe of organizations around the country to even begin to understand about something going viral. I use that word going viral after the stroke because all of a sudden we realized what we didn't know 4 months before about the COVID-19. It doesn't take much for the United States with the press and information to know more about COVID, which we never knew before. The same thing happens with aphasia. We need to go viral, and the only way we can do that is by starting a match, as it were, and going to the next and the next and the next through these organizations, through the sectors, through the industries, and have all of them begin to understand why this thing is so important. And some people in the stroke world do use the police systems and first responders at a great place, sort of a wedge to get into the dialogue with the public through the police, because then the police begin to understand that what they thought was somebody that was drunk. In my case, I just couldn't talk well. So good for me, I had my card, and still a lot of people don't have their card. I keep printing them out and handing them out, even to the groups I go to, handing it out so they had it for themselves. With people in the police world, they thought that somebody like me was just sort of drunk or mental issues or whatever, had no idea about this thing called aphasia. So thank goodness we do have some organizations in our world that have started doing that. That happens to be something we should be doing around the country, and using the first responders as a really good way to open up that door and get in. But the plan, besides the book and then the website, then the plan begins. And the plan starts with it doesn't start with, but it does start with the hospitals and the healthcare providers to, again, since they have an interest, and this is always helpful, is the meeting of the minds. They have an interest in stroke and aphasia because they are connected in one way or another. I'm talking with a local hospice group here in St. Augustine. They are using my book, adopting it as their own special edition. So actually using their own logo on the cover and their own letter introducing who they are as the first page of my book. And you all can do that too. We're still working on that. But they are doing that because they have lots and lots of their older people who, and their family, who still spend a long time in that phase of palliative care and want to understand a lot more about stroke and aphasia. And they are more than interested in finding out more. And that just happens to be one of those organizations that do have an interest, and as a result, adopt your interest, which is ours, is enormous, to their understanding of what they think is interesting to them and their customers. So the hospital, healthcare, other health-related organizations, nonprofit, as well as more broadly organizations, even the Boy Scout of America, they too have badges, including issues of stroke and health issues and medicine, as well as disability awareness. Disability awareness doesn't include aphasia. I'm working on that. So pretty much everything you can think of, and it's probably somewhat different to the clinicians versus the people with aphasia. The people with clinicians look at us, as it were, patients, certainly, stroke survivors, yes. What I now think should be stroke educators, because we too, people with aphasia, also turn around and not just deal with our clinicians, but turn around to the rest of the world that is still quite unearthed and explain to them why it is so important for that wider public to better understand about how the brain really does work, using somebody, me as an example, of how the brain really does get better based on the 10 principles of neuroplasticity, experience-dependent neuroplasticity. Same thing with the Chamber of Commerce. I've talked to them, presented at them, the same thing. Basically, nobody there knows anything about it, but the grocery stores, as a good example, want to know more. They want to have more training for their employees so they can understand who the people are that are now every day going past their register and better understand, oh, I have heard of this. I want to understand more. My grandmother had a stroke, was mute, and lived for a long time. So even the grocery stores are very interested. The coffee shops, very interesting for the very same reason. They want to know who people are coming in that door, be able to explain for them if they have someone who can't quite explain it for themselves. And with me, with my stroke, there were several times, thank goodness I had my card, because I was standing looking at things clearly. People could see that I was having problems just really understanding, other than just pointing. And 2 times, 2 restaurants pulled me aside and said, because I gave them this, and they read it and said, please come with me. And we had a great conversation, although it was still pretty much one way, because I would eat anything they ordered for me. I just wanted my food and get the hell out of there. So the plan that will come with my website coming up soon, and you're beginning to see things. Many of you people here have seen some of my articles coming out recently talking about what we have to do going forward. It will include the activities that I'm encouraging everybody else in our world, the speech world, to consider with their individual communities, and not just sing to the choir, but move outside and start singing to that other unsung part of the world. And that includes, and I list some of it here, business and the Chamber of Commerce, churches, exact same thing, schools, exact same thing. Many high schools now have medicine-oriented classes, so that is a good place to do it. Police, first responders, nonprofit, healthcare providers, hospitals, the government, also very important. Banks, insurance, lawyers. They too are very interested in the needs of their customers. When they talk about disabilities, they often, it's a big lumped group, more than just disabilities. Talking about stroke a little, heart attacks a little, falls a little. Stroke and aphasia often needs to be connected so that people can better understand a word that doesn't mean anything to anybody until it is connected to the word stroke. So when I say aphasia, I typically say stroke and aphasia, stroke and aphasia. Aphasia by itself is like coming from Mars and saying, here's a cigarette, smoke it. And the Martian goes, I don't know what this is, right? So you really have to build this out going forward, and communicate, transmit the information to the wider public about stroke and aphasia. Thank you very much. Have a great day. Thank you very much to Aphasia Access for the work they have done over the last several years going forward. I really do appreciate that. And starting with all the people that I've met, I see Janet Whiteside is there. Thank you very much for watching. But I do appreciate everybody doing what they are doing to further educate the wider public about stroke and aphasia and awareness from someone who actually had it. And if you can, take a look at the book. I'm not hawking the book as much as I'm telling you that there are going to be steps that we have to do. One of them is plugging in the crack in that dam, and this happens to be one of those activities going forward. Thank you very much. Tim.
Tom, thank you very much. That was excellent. Thank you. It's been a while since I saw you down in Orlando.
That's true. That's
so
true. How you doing?
We're doing good. We're doing good. It's amazing how far we've come in this 24-hour teach-in, and the information that has come through with everybody's presentation, and just seeing the community come together has been, it's been special. It really has. So, you know, you know, it's always good to see you. That's something.
Well, it was interesting every time things was going, and I would dip in yesterday several times. And when I got dipped in, I thought, oh, geez, I started taking notes. I said, oh, I'm going to watch the whole thing. Then I got to go. And then I dip in again. Oh, I like this. I started writing some notes down. So yes, it was very, very, very useful and educated for all of us, I'm sure. So that was a lot of fun.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Tom, as always, for, you know, being a part of aphasia and everything that you do to further the education of aphasia. We really, really appreciate that. So with
Thank you,
that,
Tim.
hopefully you can go grab a cup of coffee down in St. Augustine. The sun should be just coming up over the beach.
That's right. That's right.
So,
Thanks again.
thanks so much.
Yeah. Hey, I'm going to take a picture too. I got to have a picture like everybody. You know, it's the, there you go. That's the best we have of being at one place or another, is having a picture of the screen. Thanks again, Tim. Take care, everybody.